We're getting ready. You're going to be very excited about my guest tonight, my friend Charly Caldwell. We're just getting everything all set up. There we go. There we go. Hang on. Ta-da!
What?
Hello and welcome to How to Choose Love. This is a very special episode. My name is Diane Haworth. I'm a heart-centered success coach, a speaker, an author, the founder of the Be Love Principles. And I love this space on Awake TV network where I can share with you not only these fantastic friends of mine, but specific tools, techniques, models that help you understand how to bring consciousness to everyday life. And you're going to love my friend today, Charly Caldwell. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so incredibly much for having me and bringing love into this world. This is just my scene, and you know that. So I'm just honored to be here. Thank you.
Let me do this. Get my glasses so I can read you the proper bio on
Okay.
Charly. I do want to give you full disclosure, though. Actually, Charly and I met, I don't know how many years ago it was now, at Brendan Bouchard High Performance Training. And we've been to several events together with us and 3,000 of our closest friends at those events.
Yeah.
I have been a member of his mastermind. I've been on his trainings. So I have personal experience of what a heart-centered guy this is.
Thank you.
This is what is just one of the many things that are amazing about Charly, who retired, by the way, in October 2000, I guess it was.
Yep.
On August 1st, 1995, Charly created a business that lived into the principle that the power of reoccurring income is going to provide personal, mind, body, and financial freedom. He was able to retire at age 29. Ever since, he feels his purpose is to help individuals, entrepreneurs, and small business owners create, build, and maintain purposeful, passionate, positive, productive, and profitable lives and businesses, feeling personal freedom on this incredible journey. Okay, guys, does it get any better than that? I don't think so.
Thank you.
Charly now has two businesses, and we'll talk about those later. One that I was familiar with was called the Life and Business Success Group. And then he also has the Internet Services Group of Florida. So let's get to it, Mr. Caldwell.
So honored. Thank you so much for
I've
that
been
beautiful intro.
excited all
Holy
day.
moly.
I'm honest to goodness, I've been excited all day. One of the things that I love about being around you in person or maybe checking out your YouTube channel, being on your trainings, is you talk about a very, very special role model you had growing up.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to share that with us and maybe give us some insight on how that person helped you learn how to choose love.
Yeah. So that person was my mom's dad, my grandpa, Gramps, as I called him, and his beautiful wife, my mom's mom, Bernice. So Bob and Bernice. And early on, Gramps was the kind of guy who they didn't say a lot in terms of how to be unconditionally loving, how to be compassionate, especially to humankind. They just tactically did it. And I watched, even at a young age, I can remember, I was like 5 or 6, and it was a Friday night. And they're like, hey, Char, tonight we're going to go down to, this was in Detroit. I grew up in Detroit area, Michigan. And we're going to go down to the deaf school. And we're going to be with the kids whose parents did not come pick them up and bring family to them. And I didn't know how to write. And I didn't know cursive and I didn't know sign language. So I'm meeting these kids that are my age that are deaf. And we had the best time just by being together energetically, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And they orchestrated that in such a way that it brought love, care, compassion into their world. And I was witness to that. Now, as a child of that age, I had no idea. That's not how everybody's grandparents work. It wasn't until my early teens, I was like, wait, your grandparents don't have a place up, we call it up north in Michigan, up at Houghton Lake, where they want you and your friends to come up and go snowmobiling in the winter and water skiing in the summer, and then have experiences. And a lot of my friends, A, didn't have grandparents, and B, had grandparents who weren't that. They were just "Hey, what you doing?" And they just didn't pay attention, or whatever. That was the way they described it. So I was brought up early on with very clear principles, especially from Gramps: unconditional love, compassion for all, and a determination and dedication to learning, applying, and growing. In my teens, my grandpa and I he had a wood shop. So we worked in the wood shop together, and I'd build things, get creative, and made the space shuttle out of wood, and I wood burned in all the details. And he goes, "Char, why don't you come with me to the craft show and we'll sell some of your stuff?" So Grandpa also helped me understand entrepreneurship early on. I remember the very first time I wanted this Commodore 64 computer, and Gramps was like, let's do the math. If you sell this many of your shuttles and your little wood boats and everything, as soon as we're done, we'll wrap up. I'll take you down to Service Merchandise. I don't know if you remember Service Merchandise.
I do.
My favorite place. And we'll get you the Commodore. And I was like, we can do that today? And he cared so much about fueling me and my endeavors and making sure that I also understood the hard work that went into it. But outside of that, when you get to the transformational piece, the fact that when I sold my crafts, that it was making somebody's day. I'm going to get that for my grandson. He loves the space shuttle. I'm going to get that for my kids because they like to play in the water with these boats that I had made waterproof through shellac and all that stuff. And I'm like, bringing joy to others through my creations. I can't thank him enough for that. And there's one other trait, and this is something I do a lot of teaching with, and I think you do as well. Grandpa, even through his older years, was always joyously curious. Joyously curious. So I remember me getting the Commodore and me programming. Back then it was a magazine, you typed in the codes and it did something. And I showed my grandpa, and he was like probably in his upper 70s, maybe mid 70s. And he said to me, "Char, you think you could get me a computer?" And I was like, "You're interested in this?" "Yeah." And so a couple months later, I went up north. My grandma's like, "Your grandpa's been on that computer all day. He's programming something." And I was like, at the time, I just remember getting chills going, I'm helping Gramps learn something because he's been so instrumental to me. And then the flip side of it was what he created was amazing. But he instilled in me and so many others, he was a great mentor to many people, the idea of being joyously curious, always growing, and the power of love through whether you exchange value by people buying stuff for you, or you just help people from a contribution perspective. And I can't even to break that down. These were so many values that were instilled in me. I just, to this day, and I think about him every day and how grateful I am. He passed away in 2009. I think about him every day and how grateful I am that he was a part of my life, and that's his inspiration and his role modelship, his mentorship. It's still, and to me and to many others, a report still hangs around. It's like fueling what I do and how I am. And it's that piece.
That's what love does.
That's it.
That's what
magic.
Love does. And I love particularly that you described in beautiful detail how by fueling your passion, by supporting you in action, deed, all of that, that this is exactly what love does, guys. It comes right back. And to think of you going up and finding Grandpa on the computer, I mean,
yeah,
great visual. That's a great visual because you in turn were fueling him. That's what I love about love. It just, it blossoms, and it obviously blossomed in your entrepreneurial pursuits. Now tell people about your very first company that you were able to sell at age 29. And also I'm really interested about how this idea of love, fueling, passion, people, purpose, how did that funnel into that endeavor?
Yeah. So back then, you and I are high performance coaches. So we have a lot of conversation and a lot of emotional connection to what we do to feel purposeful each day. And even more importantly, what I believe, what we don't do that doesn't feel purposeful. We are consciously saying no to many things so we can dive in and go after our yeses with more fierce, decisive action. So when I rewind my life, I was really clear coming out of high school that I love two things. And you'll see how this connects with what Grandpa instilled in me and Grandma and a lot of my role models. One was helping people. I really love helping people. I still feel it in my bones. Two was working with technology. So it evolved from woodcraft, woodworking to computers, and I started building computers. Then I worked for a computer company. And the natural evolution of that, by the time 1994 hit, so keep in mind, I graduated high school in 1989, and I was blessed to work for a computer company by a guy who basically let me run his company, a small little computer company, building computers, helping initially home owners. Then it went to business. But I got burned out in 94. And I remember walking up the stairs. This kind of leads to your answer, by the way. I was walking up the stairs in the building that we rented an office in, and the owner of it became a big mentor of mine. His name's Ed. And I came upstairs, and every day at 4:30, like clockwork, Ed would crack a beer in his office, and you'd hear, and I peek my head around, and a lot of times we were kidding around. Ed, he goes, my day is done. And I just remember being like, how is your day done? I'm still building computers. I still got people to serve. And it didn't hit me until that day. I was very frustrated because I had gone out and installed a computer system. We would go into their houses, set it up, make sure that they knew how to turn it on, get the printer printing and all that stuff to make sure it was a complete experience. Keep in mind, this was in the late, early 90s, that was way out of.
I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I came in, I was really frustrated. And I sat down with Ed, and he said, Char, take a look at my business. I'm not trading time for money like you are. And he ran an insurance company. I'm keeping customers happy. And if I do that, they come in and pay premiums every quarter, every half year, every year. And at that time, it was more of less of a automatic credit card thing like it is today. People would come in and pay. And if they had issues with their policy or needed some insurance adjust or whatever it would be, they talked to a person in person. And I was like, in that day, the light bulb clicked. I've got to develop a subscription sort of recurring revenue. That was all I could think about, was how can I do something like that? And right on the heels of that is where the internet, it was already up and running as far as the backbone of it, but the World Wide Web started gaining popularity. Now, remember at that time there was Prodigy, AOL, CompuServe. And what was the problem for the people in our community, this was in a small town in Michigan, between Lansing and Detroit called Howell, is that they didn't have a local number to get on AOL. And so they were $200, $400 phone bills a month because they wanted on this internet thing. And I was like, I think I could bring that to the community. So it happened to work out where we ran what back then was called a T1 line, big data line. And we put in like 10 phone lines. And we got our first, few customers from my computer company, or the computer company I was running. And we started Internet Services Group of Michigan. And that started August 1st, 95. We got our first customers about then. And then we went online September 1st of 95. Wow. And that first payment, I remember going, I really don't have to do any more real recruitment to retain that customer. I don't have to sell them anything else. All I have to do, like Ed told me, was take care of them. And with the fuel from the way I was raised with my grandpa and grandma about helping people, unconditional love, always growing, making sure they're taken care of. Keep in mind, I also had to explain to grandpa things in real simple terms. So I became a good teacher because I cared so much about my grandpa getting it.
Yep.
That helped me big time when people were getting on it. And that back then it wasn't as easy as today. It wasn't Wi-Fi. It was literally got to get a modem to screech and connect and all these kind of things. It was a lot of work. So that company started out with literally my ex-wife and I started it September 1st, 95. We got our first 3 customers. And our goal is to get to 2,000 customers over the course of 4 years. We got to 10,000 customers over the course of 4.5 years. We ended up building that team just from her and I to 15 team members. We moved in. This was crazy in the time. Like picture this, 1996. There's a storefront in it's older downtown called Internet Services. The world wasn't ready for that just yet. People were walking in there and they're like, this is where the internet is? This is where everything happens? And we're like, no, picture a big cloud. We're just connected to it. A lot of people wouldn't believe us. They thought the internet happened in the building. And I'm like, no, this is where it is. And we were right in front of that whole uptick. World Wide Web pages. People subscribe to get World Wide Web hosting, web page hosting. People subscribe to get connected to the internet. They subscribe to get connected to the internet, like their office, meaning like their dedicated office connections, right. Those kind of things. And then that business just blossomed. And I remember thinking when we were in that building, I'm like, I think this is too big for us. And we filled it up within a year or two. And then that evolved. And then finally a bigger company came when we hit that 10,000 mark. That when you hit that as a small company, there has to be systems in play. And the big companies knew that. Because you get to about 1,000 users and you can do that hodgepodge. But after that, you got to have systems. And I'm a systems guy. So we built systems and databases and stuff to manage accounts and stuff like that. And that's how that happened. October 10th, 2000, the closing happened. I was 80 pounds overweight. I was financially sound, retired at 29, but I was a disaster when it came to my health because I let the business run me versus me running the business. And that was my big learning. We took about a year and a half off, bought a big motorhome, hit the road, ended up here in Florida, and then started our family. And that's kind of that whole story in a nutshell. Did I cover everything for you?
What I love is the thread of love that's consistent. You get out of high school and you know, what are the two things that I love? I love to serve people. I love technology.
Yeah.
So you, by watching the models that were in your life, created a business that was obviously super successful. And I don't know about everybody that's going to be watching this, but I certainly know for myself, in my 20s, my priorities were a little different. I certainly wasn't then, nor am I now, an athlete. So my health, although I wanted to be healthy, I didn't pay attention to things like that. So it just absolutely makes sense to me. You were focused on what you love, building the business. And not everybody remembers the 90s. I do. I remember turning on my computer, going to make a cup of coffee and coming back, waiting for it to connect.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. You were really in the wild, wild west of the internet is exactly what you were. And it sounds like you had the best saloon in town.
We really made sure to take care of people. The way that it worked for us was that if people had problems, I said, bring your computer in. And I built in the front of our house when we started this, there was a side room, a sun porch room. And initially I had a table there for them to put their computer and I would fix it. Or if it was something that took a while, then I would say, come back tomorrow and we'll have that done for you. And then eventually that became a classroom. And then we do computer repair in another room. And it was just that unconditional love for their experience and their well-being. If that sounds, it can sound kind of weird, but the internet brought a lot of love into people's lives, and it brought a lot of, we'll just say, divorce too, because of the way that you see other options. And next thing you know, for us, when we got a couple that came in and got internet, and about 6 months, a year later, they got divorced. We're like, we're so sorry to hear that you're separating. And then we got another account out of it. So there's like a running kind of joke in the house, like, oh, we got another divorce, extra account. And I'm like, and you could tell sometimes there was a toxicity in the relationship. And it just, amplified through the power of the internet, recognizing, being able to research, do whatever. And that was an interesting side effect of it. But I think the reason that our company did so well, coming back to love, was that we cared so deeply about their experience that we had them literally in our house to repair their computer and make sure that if there was anything that needed to be fixed in it, that they could get on and have a good experience. And that was relayed as we grew and scaled. So that was a powerful piece.
That's incredible. And I have to say that not only did you have love and unlove, but there was lots of frustration. People who did not understand. Now, kids are hardwired to understand how to do these things. We didn't. You had scores, generations of people to teach. Yeah. So that is really important. And I thought it was really funny you were mentioning love on the internet. That's how I found my husband.
Oh, that's so great to hear. I didn't know that about you. That's so awesome.
Yeah, found him on the internet, not just in some weird room. And they used to have these match rooms, and that's where we met. So I just love all of that. I also think it's really interesting, and I got permission to talk about this before we came on air.
Yeah.
About how you use love in all aspects of your life. Now, I've seen it when I've seen you interact with people at big events. I've seen it in groups that I've been in that you've been teaching. I've certainly experienced it when you and I have been on the phone. But we actually talked about even choosing to bring love into divorce. Now we've both been divorced, and as coaches, we know lots of people who, for whatever reason, no judgment, but that is either a choice they won't make or they find hard to make,
Right.
or it's something they strive to, they're not there yet. If you feel comfortable, can you give us a little bit of an idea of, even with, this wasn't even just your wife, it's your business partner.
Yeah.
Here you are uncoupling. How were you able to bring love to that process? Because I think that's really important.
I can tell you, it gets emotional to go here.
Mm.
It was looking into this girl's eyes when
Yep.
she was 2.5. And her mom had been, I don't know if she'd been diagnosed yet with bipolar. So there was if you know about bipolar, there's the mania,
Yeah.
and then there's the depression. And usually in the mania aspect, there's a heightened level of just like things are firing off like crazy. And it can be good things and it can be toxic things. And it was a lot of toxicity then, a lot of toxicity. And I just remember stepping up to it because I was defending and I just remember being exhausted from that conversation. And it's like most things, it started to seed things, should have been handled early on. And then over the course of a couple of years, it went to bigger things. And all I remember is so I got divorced at the end of 2005, but it was about 2004, the end of 2004. This lovely girl, my oldest daughter, Paige, she's about 3. She's a caring, compassionate, loving soul. She's always been that way. She sees mom and I going at it, not like physically. We never did go physically or anything like that, but just screaming and yelling. And she just wants it to stop. And she steps up and grabs my legs and looks up at me. And I looked down at her and I said, this ends now. This ends now. Never do I want to see those eyes again. I can be a better role model. I can be a better parent. And I just, like, if you were in a battle with shields and swords and gear on, I would have figuratively just threw my sword to the ground, threw my shield to the ground, took off my gear and said, I'm done. I'm done having this. This isn't the role model that I want to be. I know because I've seen it, the way that I want to be as a parent. And I'm so blessed to be able to share based on our story earlier. My grandparents demonstrated. They didn't have a perfect relationship, don't get me wrong, but they demonstrated love and unconditional love for each other through thick and thin. And recognizing that I wasn't even close to that. And at that time, I wasn't as clear as I became about the girls being my legacy. This is my short time on this planet. My job and my belief is to make sure these two are as wise as they can be. We've thought things through. We've had conversations. We've talked about best practices. We've said, this opportunity comes up, like, let's walk this through from a mature place. And it wasn't that. Even back then I knew I can do so much better. And that was the pivot. So once that decision was made, to answer your question, I reached out. That conversation, I had to leave because it was in a major state of enragement. And then I came back when we were at a peaceful place. And I said, you know what? And she said it as well. Something's got to shift. And I don't know if we need to trial separate or what, but I can't play this game anymore. And so over time, it's just like everything, it takes time. And there were some really bad parts to this, and I'll spare you all that. But we decided, why don't we just be friends and co-parents? And let's set the ambition to be good friends. And I'll get my own place. And here's a couple of things that I asked her to do if she would, that people think I'm nuts when I say this. I said, please take some time and I want you to write me an email of all of the things you hate about me. And don't be like, and she wasn't the person and she still isn't. She's very unfiltered and will tell you whatever she feels. She went through and listed, I would say it was 2 pages if it was printed, of stuff she hated about me. And I got that email and I said, it may be therapeutic for you, but I need to know because this is going to inform me on things that there may be some stuff in there. I'm like, what? But there may be some truth in there. I need to know it. And because of that exercise, and we made a commitment to assure that the girls were taken care of no matter what. We were the first couple for this. We had to go to a divorce class for parents in person. And we were the first couple of the girl that ran it. She'd been doing it 20 years, that saw the people that were getting divorced sitting next to each other. It was held in a courtroom just because that was the room that they had. And we're sitting there in the jury box. It was a court case. It wasn't a court case. It was a training. And we're sitting in the jury box, and she goes, "Wait, are you the two going through a divorce? This is the first time that I've ever seen that." And we're both in tears because we know it's what we got to do. But we were going to do that with dignity, and we were going to do that and do our very best to be good friends through and after the process. And as easy as it is for me to tell you that, it was not easy. Let me tell you that. We'd been together 14 years. Probably, from your life experience. But it was these two. We just knew we had to be that if we wanted to maintain what I would classify as good co-parenting and love in that space, that had to be maintained. And so we made it through. I got my space. We've worked out a schedule for the last 15 years, where the girls rotate back and forth. And it's worked for me, it's worked for the girls, and it's worked for that situation. And I would say, I can say this wholeheartedly, that the way I was able to come out of the emotional trenches where I wanted to attack and disintegrate and do all the nasty stuff was because I kept coming back to the strong role models I had. And even though my grandma by then had passed away, I could hear her voice. And her voice was always about, she had these great sayings. And one of them was just bring love, be of love, just absorb love, share love. Like she would say stuff like that. And I'm just like, oh, Grandma, I hear you. It's so hard right now. And I probably wasn't the best at doing that then by a long shot, but I still had that as my compass. And that really helped through that transition. So I don't know if that answers the whole question, but that's
the thing. That was your compass.
Yeah.
That was your compass. And certainly, first of all, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate
absolutely.
It. And thank you for, I'm glad that we talked about it in advance because I certainly wanted to make sure that I had permission to go there.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important to this overall thing because your life has evolved. Well, yours, your current family, the girls, everything has evolved from that perspective of how do we love each other through it? And that's a way to choose love. I don't care if you're breaking up with a romantic partner. Sometimes we break up with business partners. Sometimes we break up with companies.
Yeah.
I never was blessed to know your grandmother, but one of the things I tell my kids is, what does love look like here? And how does love move you forward? And if you don't know, because sometimes I don't know, I'm in the middle of whatever, then I will just go into that quiet, sacred space of my own heart and say, show me the next best move.
Yeah.
Charlie, we could talk for like 20 hours, I'm sure, but let's do this. So we've gone through kind of the beginning and how you had this company. Tell us how you're bringing love to what you're doing now and how you're creating a legacy for those gorgeous girls.
Yeah. The biggest thing, taking that idea of recurring revenue equals personal freedom and the 5 Ps, as we talked about at the beginning when you introduced me.
That's a lot of Ps, but by the way, when you're reading it out loud, just saying.
Passion, positivity, productivity, and profitability. You tie that stuff together. And if you're of love, and the way that I approach it, my trainings are health, wealth, and happiness is one realm. And then business and internet mastery is another realm. 30 years here and about 10 years of mastery here as a coach and my constant development. Although I've always been in this personal development, even from when I was younger, primarily because of my grandparents. And my grandma was just like, she lives into a lot of principles we teach. And she would tell me it was common sense. And I'm like, well, I feel like in our high performance work, we're teaching people common sense from decades ago in some ways. And so the way that it works now is that I have videos and content that help people get new perspectives, challenge them through stories and illustrations and in specific trainings. And then I have an online program now in its 4th year that helps people really go after that by more intensive training in the life side and the business side, along with high performance coaching. And then what we call them are Zoom roundtables. And that's where twice a month, for as much time as we need, we get into a Zoom roundtable and we support, help, hear each other's stories. And I coach them sometimes on the call, answer their questions, help them, get commitments out of them, and really build that. And that's all part of that monthly program, the mastery community, as I call it. And so the way that that's facilitated is of love. And a lot of people have said, Char, how you had such high membership retention in the last 4 years? And I have to say, 2 words: unconditional love. That's the foundation. Everybody who's in our program knows if they have a life issue show up or a business issue show up, they pop me an email or text, whatever it is. We're on a call within a day typically, or immediately, depending on the severity of it. And that's like, there's no better use of me on the planet. I guess it's the easiest way to put it, because of my beliefs and values. And so that's the way that I serve. And there's a lot of things that are out there that I have that are, free. And then there's some things that are like a little bit of pay, like our courses and stuff. But the idea is that's all out there. And people can sort of pick and choose, or they can get more intimacy, if you want to call it that, where I'm helping them personally or in a group. And that's kind of how that plays out. Does that answer your question?
It does. And I have to say, I want to make sure everybody understands that although we're talking about love, and I hope you can see the way I see Charly's heart, he's all about loving service.
Yeah.
He's not above pushing you when you need it. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just say that there's also the action piece.
Yeah.
There's also the action piece. So tell everybody your websites where they can get more information, follow you. We're also going to have that in the episode description, but I would love to have you just tell us where people could best connect with you.
Easiest place is lifeandbusinesssuccess.us. So it's the word life, the word and, the word business, success.us. And what we've done is we've evolved that site to be a choose your own adventure. It's like an involvement device. If you study internet design and user interface, some of the best sites are user involvement devices are included. So I don't know if you remember the old days of choosing your own adventure, and like a textual Zork was a game that did that. But that's what it's evolving to. So that you're like, you see me smiling with my 2 bottles on that page. And then it says, where do you need the most help right now? Life, business, or online? They're each individual buttons. And then there's options that will be under those. Right now, we're just putting out version 1. But that takes you through all the options. Immediate things that you can access for free that help you out now. And then things that you can apply for if you want to be part of our master community or whatever that is as well. But it's lifeandbusinesssuccess.us. And at the very bottom of that site are all the socials. So you get onto my YouTube channel and see a lot of the trainings we got there. My Instagram. In my Instagram, I really try to showcase living a full life. So you'll see a lot of great close-ups of tasty food, adventures, me and my babies having fun. So it's lifeandbusinesssuccess.us. That's the one place that I would recommend.
It's like the best. That's the best site anyway. And I do have to say, I have traveled through Europe with Charly. I was here in Virginia watching his Instagram feed. But hey, I feel like I was right there and didn't even
living vicariously.
I didn't even have to get my passport out.
Aw.
So
I'm so glad you were with me.
Oh, I was, and I packed like 2, by the way.
Aw, that's awesome.
Charly, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're so incredibly welcome. Thank you for this opportunity.
Today. I really appreciate it. I hope you all see the Charly that I do and see his wonderful heart and see how he works every day to come from love and choose love, not only in business, but in the way he lives his life. So I wanted to remind you that there's a place to comment down below these videos. Please feel free to do that. Charly and I haven't been able to see that during this, but we'll go back and look after that. Thank you very much. Again, I'm Diane Haworth. You can always connect with me on my websites, dianehaworth.com, and the Be Love Principles. You can learn more about me in the teacher section here at Awake TV. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being part of this broadcast. I sincerely appreciate you being here. I hope you've come away with a few new ways to choose love. I'm Diane Haworth. This is How to Choose Love. I'll see you next Wednesday.